So this past weekend, we had the return of Brian T. City Ortega, the takeover of Teofimo Lopez, and Conor McGregor has his eyes set on Texas. We're talking about it all right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
What's going on, Nick? How we doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be back in the studio.
Yes, it is nice. I mean, we had the little road set up that worked for...
Yeah.
It served its purpose.
Right.
But it feels at home when we're here in the studio and we have
Yeah.
our mic set up how we want to. We got the little table here, so...
Right. Got the place to put the coffee, and it was nice. Great to go back to Savannah. Great to have a nice little vacation because we've all needed one after all this craziness this year. But it is actually nice to be home.
Most definitely, most definitely. And what a way to be greeted by two awesome cards, one in boxing and one in MMA. Talking about Brian T. City Ortega, what a performance he had last night.
Yeah, that was incredible. I personally, I don't think we made a predictions video on this card, but I was wrong in my prediction. I thought that the Korean Zombie of old would show up and it would be largely a striking match, which it was, but I did not account for T. City Ortega making this many adjustments into his striking game, and I also didn't account for Zombie coming in with a totally different game plan.
Yeah, what improvements T. City made. I mean, you talk about he hasn't fought since 2018. He had that really tough loss against Max Holloway, where he really just got outclassed on the feet from beginning to end, and he also, on top of that, wasn't able to impose any of his submission-threatening grappling that he usually can put onto guys. So he went back to the drawing board. He worked on some things. He brought some new people into the camp, and it was very clear that for the last 18 to 20 months, he's been working very heavily on his stand-up striking game. And if you're a guy that's just tuning in for the first time and watching Brian T. City Ortega fight and you don't know anything about him, after last night's performance, you might have said, wow, this guy must have a great Muay Thai background or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't assume that's one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners based off last night's performance. You would probably venture to say he's probably one of the better strikers in the 145 division, which is a pretty stacked division as far as strikers go. But it looks like he's really rounding out his game and becoming a complete martial artist that's a threat for a lot of people, especially at the top of the division, both on the feet and on the ground. So I see him being a problem with that range for the title fight that he's apparently getting with Volkanovski. I think that poses a lot of problems for Volkanovski because if you would have told me the Brian T. City Ortega of old was fighting Volkanovski, I would have thought that would have been a bit of a mismatch, judging by how good Volkanovski's looked on his feet. But now I think we're going to have a different fight on our hands.
Yeah, I think so. And one thing that he said very interesting, that was very interesting after the fight was that, everybody knows him as a jiu-jitsu player. He's one of the best jiu-jitsu players in MMA.
Right.
He's a gi specialist. He's a no-gi specialist. He's a threat whether he's on his back, whether he's on top of you, or whether you're standing in a clinch, as we saw against Cub Swanson with that really slick standing guillotine that he was able to put on him. But what he said in the post-fight was, listen, this is mixed martial arts. This is not jiu-jitsu, and mixed martial arts is a mixing of the martial arts. I needed to work on my wrestling. I needed to work on my stand-up striking, and boy, did he really address those things. One thing I really thought he improved on, and one thing that was, Max Holloway was able to do to him was establish the distance and the range, and Max was able to engage on his terms, largely behind a long, crisp jab of Max Holloway. It almost seems like Ortega took a page out of Holloway's book because his jab last night looked fantastic. And every time that Zombie looked like he was going to try to string together some combinations or get something going, Ortega would put a really crisp, really sharp jab right in his face, or he would put kind of this looping front hook that would get around the guard and land on Zombie. And some of them were heavy shots, but most of them were just to disrupt the timing of Zombie, which I think he did beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to utilize your range, especially when it's not that big of a difference in the height and the range of the fighters. But what T. City did was almost like his idle stance last night was just a fluid jab, not even trying to land, but trying to cause a problem just in the timing and the rhythm of Zombie, which is exactly what it did. It's like his rhythm, his natural rhythm that he was moving in was just he threw a jab at the end of it the whole time, and then he would set things up off it with that momentum that throwing your jab consistently like that helps you do. And he looked really, really crisp. Some of those techniques that he was using with the striking were very high level. Usually when you see a guy who is lacking in the striking department and he goes and takes some time and tries to figure it out, they take about 4 or 5, maybe 6 really good techniques that are tried and true, and they give them to him and they make him repeat it. It's like the old Bruce Lee thing. Don't learn 10,000 kicks and try them once. Learn one kick, try it 10,000 times. But T-City was throwing, wheel kicks and spinning elbows and all kinds of stuff that takes years to develop the skills to do and the timing and all that stuff. And he was landing them on a high-level fighter. So I think whoever he's working with, striking, and I didn't, off the top of my head, recognize the guys in his crowd or in his corner. Obviously, Rener Gracie couldn't make it out there with him, but needless to say, he didn't need any of the jiu-jitsu instructions for last night's fight.
Yeah, so Rener Gracie, bummed he couldn't make it, but really excellent performance by Ortega. And he's dangerous because the jiu-jitsu didn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. The jiu-jitsu's still there, but now he's a threat in the stand-up as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's going to pose a lot of problems for, like I said, the top 5. And they said he's getting the next title shot. So if he's able to get over on Volkanovski, you've got some really interesting matchups for T-City. I mean, even if he loses, he's kind of a longer body like a Zabit. I think he's a little shorter than Zabit, but still they've got that thin frame.
Yeah.
People like Zabit, Yair Rodriguez, those types of guys with T-City are very fun fights. And I think 145 just got a resurgence from somebody who was already a staple in the division. He was kind of like the guy who's like, where'd he go? Like, he was on such a tear, and then he lost. And it's not really like people say the 2 years off was like something because he was trying to find himself. I get that, but the coronavirus came in, and that sort of played a role into it too. I think he was scheduled to fight at least 2 times with Korean Zombie before this fight actually took place, and he had some unfinished business with Korean Zombie, needed to go settle that. They clearly did in the octagon, and I think he did all the right things and took the appropriate amount of time to get himself where he needs to be.
Yeah, and a lot of respect to him for making this fight a stand-up dogfight against a guy who everybody thought was, and rightfully so, was one of the most feared strikers in all of the 145 division and has been for quite some time. I know he took his break to go to the Korean military, and now he's back, but that didn't look like the Zombie of old to me. And maybe that may have just been that Ortega was able to disrupt him enough to where he couldn't really get his game going. But the Zombie of old is a guy who walks you down, is not afraid to take one, to give one, and tries to shut the lights out. I didn't see a whole lot of that. I saw some good lead uppercuts and some exchanges and some times where a Zombie had his moment, but start to finish, that was all Ortega.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I had it going 50-45, all the rounds going to Ortega. I think some of the judges did as well.
I think it was all 3. All 3 was 50-45.
Yeah, so, I mean, they got it right. Korean Zombie is always a guy that you have to fear when you get in the cage with him because he throws caution to the wind time and time again. If you look back, he throws caution to the wind and marches forward like a zombie. That's why he got the name. He didn't name himself that because he thought it was cool. People were like, that guy's a Korean Zombie. So it was a little bit upsetting to see him not go with that old school style, and I understand why. And in my opinion, when there's a title, a number one contenders fight, or a title fight is next on the line, you see everybody get so calculated and they stop taking all risks. And sometimes if you're a risk taker and you're kind of one of those guys like a Korean Zombie who just comes in guns a-blazing and brings a storm that most people can't deal with, and you abandon that game plan, then you run into trouble because it's hard for him. It looked like he never got out of first gear. It looked like he was just always at the base level of the fight. And Korean Zombie has made his career and gotten the majority of his wins just in the fire, in the middle of the hell of it.
Fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think largely we have to give credit to Ortega for being able to stop that and to hitting Zombie with enough power and enough shot. Every time Zombie did try to rush in with, it was a bit of a sloppy lead hook where he kind of lunged forward, which was when Ortega just put that spinning elbow on him. That can make you think twice, even if you're as tough as the Korean Zombie, about engaging like that again when you pay for it. When you pay for it that badly,
right?
With just a shot that came out of nowhere. That was Yair Rodriguez style elbows there.
Yeah, if he would have gone down to that and it would have ended the fight, that would be so wild. Like how Korean Zombie has like the twister and there's almost none of them. Like spinning back fist or spinning elbow losses is like such an uncommon thing.
Yeah,
but he would have like multiple if he would have gone out on that one. Showed he was tough as nails. T-City did show a little bit of the ground and pound and the dominance from the top position in the jiu-jitsu and the grappling exchanges at the end of that second round. But it was all T-City all night long.
And I am super excited to see him and Volkanovski square off.
Yeah.
I'm like you. If you asked me last night before the fight started, I was still pick 'em going into the fight. I didn't know. I mean, I guess I was leaning more towards Zombie, but I was like, man, I've never had such a hard time picking a fight as I am having with this one right now, because I just think this could go either way. That being said, I wasn't super hype on a Ortega Volkanovski fight yesterday afternoon.
Right.
I am extremely excited about an Ortega Volkanovski fight today as we film this podcast, because there is so many new wrinkles to Ortega's game that he showed us. He showed us that he can pop you with a jab that keeps you at bay. He showed us that he can pull unorthodox spinning maneuvers off and make them land. He showed us that one thing I thought he did really well was he would fake the takedown, because you have to respect his takedowns.
Right.
And that's how Conor got hit with that big shot by Khabib. Conor had his hands down, was going for the sprawl, and Khabib came right over with the overhand. So when you're a really good grappler, you have the ability to utilize takedown attempts almost as feints and fakes to land the striking setups that you want to land. So right now, I'm really charged up on Volkanovski versus Ortega. I think Ortega presents a lot of problems. One, he's tall. Two, he's the better ground grappler. And three, he's proven that he can be in there with a guy that's known for KOs, known for knocking people out, and sort of solve that puzzle, get around it, use his jab, and have success. So I think this is a much tougher night for Volkanovski than I would have thought yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, and the thing about it, one of the other things that I saw in Ortega's performance is he went 5 rounds and looked fresh all the way through the 25 minutes of the fight. And that's something that is going to play into his favor against Volkanovski, because Volkanovski can go 25 minutes with everybody. He's shown it to us time and time again. The few times we've seen Ortega going, into 5-round fights and 25-minute long fights, he does seem to lose some of that cardio that he's got. It looks like he addressed that a little bit. And I think, I called this last one being a largely stand-up match, and that's what it was. It was just different than what I was expecting. Volkanovski is a high-level wrestler, high level, and Ortega is a high-level jiu-jitsu player. So I think that both of those guys are going to negate each other's grappling, and it's going to be another stand-up match that's going to probably go the distance, because Ortega's clearly showing that he can throw shots at you at a 70% and then throw in a heavy 100% shot every now and again all night long. That's Volkanovski's game. That's what he does best. He does it, as of right now, better than anybody else. And he's got 2 wins over Max Holloway that prove that. So I do find this one to be a very compelling matchup for the featherweight division, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Absolutely. And when you do MMA math, which is always wrong,
right?
But when you do MMA math, you see Brian T. City 2 years ago got pieced up by Max Holloway, and then you see Volkanovski get past Max Holloway twice. Although there's some discussion and debate to be had as to whether the judges got that second one right.
He most definitely won a lot of rounds against Max Holloway.
This is a guy that has won multiple rounds against Holloway. So can Ortega overcome that? And I think this is Ortega 2.0. Henner Gracie said it best in his post last night.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to my friend Brian T. City Ortega 2.0.
Yeah, I think he's spot on with that.
Brian Ortega is now elbow City as well as T City.
Yeah, and I don't want to say the hair was holding him back, but that new look was something to see.
Yeah.
And I shout out to him for donating his hair. There was a couple people saying, oh, he had to cut his hair because he was having such a tough weight cut. He came and squashed all those rumors right off the bat. He was like, that's not the case. I'm donating my hair to Locks of Love. So you have to give him a lot of credit for that. A guy with that kind of mane on the top of his head, people only wish to have hair like that, and he just gave it away. So props to him on that.
We would be remiss without mentioning that. And for you guys that don't know what Locks of Love is, I've actually donated my hair. It used to be as long as Nick's, and I'm in the process of kind of growing it back out now. So you'll see some weird in-between stages these next couple of months. But it's a organization where people donate their hair of, I think, more than 10 inches, and they use it to make wigs for cancer patients and people who lose their hair due to chemo. So super cool move on Ortega's part. I thought the weight cut thing was BS anyways, because when he fought Max Holloway, he had to be 145 on the button for a title fight. Against Zombie, you get the grace pound, so you get the 146. So a guy that can make 145 on the nose can make 146, unless something really weird was going on or going wrong. But I didn't get any reports or hear any rumors that was the case. So this was just simply, listen, he's Brian Ortega 2.0.
Yeah.
Brian Ortega 1.0 had long hair. Brian Ortega 2.0 looks like a very scary hairless phenom. So.
Yeah, exactly. He's a very disciplined guy. He's never had trouble making the weight, and he's built perfectly for 145. So I think the future's bright.
Absolutely. So moving from a more free-form rule set to the Queensberry rule set, last night we saw what he called the Takeover. Mm-hmm. Teofimo Lopez took on what people were saying is the number one pound-for-pound boxer in the world, possibly the most skilled, pure boxer, certainly probably the best amateur boxer that there's ever been in Vasyl Lomachenko. And the young 23-year-old absolutely rose to the occasion and got the W. He is now the unified champion of the world. What did you think of his performance?
Well, yeah, that was incredible. And, I do think that he rose to the occasion and was able to do what it took to get the win over, in my opinion, the pound-for-pound number one fighter in Vasyl Lomachenko. Everybody talks about Lomachenko in such a high regard, and he's truly earned that. He's such a high-level technical boxer, and pretty much nobody has been able to solve the riddles and the problems that him and his father and his team present to you in the ring. And props to Teofimo, because he came out with a game plan that was very smart. It was very sharp. And, being such a young guy, you can tend to be a little bit of not a head case, but you can get in your own way sometimes,
right.
and you can let emotions get the better of you. Lomachenko walks in there and he's just stone cold killer.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see things happen or things don't go your way a little bit when you're a younger person and you don't quite know how to deal with it and register it and just move forward. But it looked like Teofimo has grown as a human. He's matured as a fighter, and he looked really good, especially in the beginning of this fight. I mean, it was such an unorthodox way to start a fight. If you go back and watch Lomachenko, he does start like that. He does give you a couple of the first rounds, but a couple.
Right.
He doesn't go ahead and give you half of the fight before he starts to turn it up and even put some offense on you, which was a little bit different if you're a Lomachenko fan. You've been watching for a while. But, I think this was a fun fight. We got a lot to unpack on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought going into this, because I watched the 2 episodes of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and the second one in particular where Teofimo actually starts crying and tearing up and saying that he's having some issues with his father and he's trying to create some boundaries between where being a dad ends and a coach begins. I said, oh, man, this is bad. I didn't know this was going on. This actually, I picked Lomachenko to win, and then I said after I saw that, man, I think this might actually be really bad for Teofimo. If you're having problems in your fight camp leading up to a mega fight, a unification title bout, that can be a recipe for disaster. So I'll even add one layer of props onto this for Teofimo, that whatever he's going through with his dad, I certainly hope that they can resolve it, because this is a wonderful moment for both of them. But the fact that he could even overcome that adversity in addition to just the pure adversity of being a young guy in there with all the pressure of the world on your shoulders really shows you what kind of character he has and what kind of fighter he is. As far as the fight goes itself, I'm with you. I said, listen, Lomachenko always does this. He's like the computer that downloads the information, and his dad is over there in the corner, like, typing away, and he's okay. Here's the game plan. We figured this guy out. Now let's go piece him up. And it usually takes 2 rounds, sometimes 3 if you're talking about a really skilled guy like another Olympic gold medalist in Rigondeaux or somebody like that. But as after the 3rd round, I said, okay, Lomachenko probably needs to pick it up now. He hasn't done much. Teofimo has had a very quick, very twitchy jab that has kept Lomachenko at bay, and he's hit some good body shots. But I'm looking for the 4th round now to see Lomachenko start to take over this fight. It didn't happen in the 4th round, and then it didn't happen in the 5th round. And then Teofimo, in my opinion, won the 6th round. And I said, well, Lomachenko doesn't really have much of an option here. Half the fight has now gone to Teofimo.
Right.
He's got to turn it up.
Right.
And he did. He turned it up in the 7th. And I think he won the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. And then I had Teofimo winning the 12th, which to me is would have been a win for Teofimo, 116, 114. I know that the cards were all over the place, but you usually don't see Lomachenko take that long to open up. Yeah. Do you think it was because he was just so maybe overly respecting the power, or do you think he didn't want to get finished, or what do you think the case was there?
I think what happened was, and props to Lopez for this, I think that Lomachenko thought he was going to come out a little bit more intense than he did. He came out and was willing to concede a couple of rounds to Lopez, and Lopez didn't do what he generally does, which is swarm you with some combinations and just like flurries of shots, and that can tend to tire a fighter out. So I think after round 2, he was like, well, I haven't really tired him out at all.
Right.
And he's going to come out and do the same game plan. And just like you were thinking, okay, round 4's passed by, round 5, when is Lomachenko going to turn it on? It has to happen eventually. We're running out of rounds here. Teofimo also was thinking the exact same thing. He's going, well, I know he's going to turn it up at some point. He has to. He can't just concede. Right. He's not just going to give me these 3 belts and not try to, land any offense. So he knew it was coming. It just determined on what round it was. And after about round 5, you knew that it was about to happen. And Lomachenko was probably getting a little bit frustrated and realized that Teofimo wasn't losing much energy. He was doing just enough to win these rounds. And it's not like he had to throw tons and tons of shots at Lomachenko to win those rounds. He was just peppering the jab, controlling the octagon. And yeah, Lomachenko was definitely gathering up some data and trying to figure out Teofimo, but he was just giving him enough and a lot of the same shots and motions and movements. So he was keeping some things concealed from Lomachenko and knew that if he kept him long enough, then he could bring him out later in the fight when he knew Lomachenko had to come in and engage and fight with him.
Right.
So it was masterful on Teofimo Lopez's part. I do think that Lomachenko had a good game plan. Mm-hmm. It was, he didn't get it off the way that he probably wanted to and as early as he wanted to. But I do, that's what he does. He comes out, he learns what you're going to do, and usually people will show you all their cards right in the first 3 or 4 rounds. Lopez didn't do that. He kind of won with a few things that he does really well first 3, 4, 5 rounds. And Lomachenko goes, well, he didn't give me enough to work off of, but I have to go ahead and start. And that's why we got some very interesting rounds, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Those were very interesting rounds. I did give Lopez the 12th round. And personally, I thought it was going to be 7 rounds to 5 rounds for Lopez. He was going to win but some of these judges that are giving it 118, 109, and those types of people should never be able to judge in boxing ever again. If that's how different the criteria and the scoring is for these judges, then they clearly didn't go to the same school to learn how to judge.
Well, it's literally almost like I raise my hand and say, I can count to 10 and I want to be a judge.
Right.
It seems that bad. And it's truly the worst thing about boxing.
Right.
Because one, you've seen the scores be corrupted at times, quite frankly. Like there's certain, it's
a lot
the
of
A side and the
boxing.
B side, ton of corruption in boxing. And this is something that they have got to address if they want to. As Teddy Atlas says, take a look at what the UFC is doing.
Yeah.
Because they're eating our lunch right now. And the reality is boxing fans get angry when people say that kind of stuff. But, if you're getting angry at that, you're just simply getting angry at the truth.
Right.
Because the UFC one, they put the fights together that people want to see, and two, Dana White holds those judges accountable. He comes out and he lambasts judges and referees for bad scores and bad calls. And that 109 to one or to something like it. Basically, it was one of the judges had it 9 rounds, or sorry, they gave all but 1 round to Lopez,
which is wild.
That judge should have to stand before the press conference and explain themselves.
Yeah,
and let us ask you the questions. Maybe we're all wrong, and maybe you saw something that we didn't see, but I doubt it. So, but we would like for you to sit there and explain to us. Let's watch this round. Let's watch that round. Let's watch round number 8, where Loma really teed off on Lopez.
Right.
And I'm not saying this because I think the score should have been overturned. I think Lopez won fair and square.
Right. They had the right guy to leave with the belts last night.
But it makes you wonder, like, if they're going to do stuff like that, can you ever allow a boxing match to go to the finish? Because you just don't. The scores are so bad and they're so all over the place. What if Teofimo fights Devin Haney next? And it's a very close fight, and Teofimo, we think he won 8 rounds to 4 or 7 rounds to 5, and then all of a sudden they give it to Devin Haney 11 rounds to 1.
Yeah.
You just have no idea with these people all over the place, and it's a shame. It does a disservice to the sport, and it diminishes the outcome, because it's like, were you fixing this from the beginning? Were you trying to get Lopez didn't need your help.
Yeah.
He won the fight on his own merit. So what were you doing there?
Yeah, and you hear it. It's like it's one of those things. It's such a horrible thing, but it's also so well known and embedded in boxing that you hear Timothy Bradley and the guys that were commentating on the fight go, this judge is known to be pretty fair for the most part. It's like, what? His job is to be fair. That is the only job.
The only
of the
thing
judge
he's there for
is to call round for round how he sees it and be honest and just unbiased. You can't have biased judges. And I'm not saying that they wanted Lopez to win or didn't want Lopez to win, but you have to watch each round and erase the other round before it and don't think about the round coming after it. Watch that round, score it truthfully. And that's the type of stuff that just crushes boxing, and people are just leaving in droves and becoming fans of MMA because, and this is one fight that we will say that the promoters were able to get the 2 right guys in there, and we got to see a high level. But, I can count on 2 fingers the fights this year that have happened. Even though the quarantine happened, this is no different than any other year in boxing. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, and Lopez Lomachenko. Those are the only 2 fights where the 2 right guys, the highest level of the competition in boxing, were in there together. Everybody else is just fighting journeymen or, padding their record, and that's the type of stuff that crushes boxing.
Until Top Rank, until these other promotion companies want to engage in making real fights happen, and fighters and their management teams want to engage in real fights happening, MMA and the UFC is going to continue to eat boxing's lunch, and that's why I love Lopez. This is not a pile on either one of these guys from last night, because Lopez does seem like he said if you want to be Floyd Money, first you got to be Pretty Boy Floyd, which is the guy who fought everybody. So I much respect to Lopez for wanting to step in there with Lomachenko and then continue thereafter. Maybe these other boxers will take a pull or take a page out of Lopez's handbook and realize that's the way forward. But this nonsense of I'm going to, and Lopez has only had 15 fights.
Right.
But these other guys, they're not even talking about stepping in there with Lomachenko until they've had 37 fights.
Right.
And, 29 of those were garbage. And it's literally like, the holding on to that, we can't let our fighter be, and shame on the promotions who are like, we got to do everything to keep that for our fighter. And the second that they lose it, then we just throw them away with the garbage. We put it out on Wednesday for the garbage truck to pick up. It does a total disservice to the sport. It log jams everything. It doesn't allow people to fight the people that should be fighting. They should be fighting, and it just absolutely makes for boring TV that gets does no ratings.
Yeah.
So props to Top Rank for finally getting it right this time.
Yeah, and to be completely fair, these guys, a lot of boxers train their entire lives because they're competitors. They love to compete. They want to compete against the best. It's not 9 times out of 10, it's not the boxer that doesn't want to fight the best fighters. It's the promoters and the people who have interest and can make a lot of money off these guys. They go, well, so-and-so is making $1 million a fight. We're getting a nice chunk of that. Why would we throw him to the wolves? Because as soon as he potentially does lose that which is ridiculous, no sport requires a superstar to be undefeated. That shows that there's not true levels of competition, which is what it is, being showcased. And it's horrible for the sport. You look at MMA, and there's a couple of people that are undefeated, but those are very far and few between, and they don't have these 80-0 records and stuff like that. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
And if you're fighting the best of the best night in and night out, you're not going to.
You're eventually going to take that L.
And that's the thing is these promoters, these boxers, would like to fight the best of the best each time out. I have full confidence that Teofimo Lopez would love to fight Lomachenko, then go fight Devin Haney, fight Gervonta Davis, all the best of the best. But we're not going to see, every time they get one of those fights to happen, 3 or 4 fights happen where you don't even know who the person's fighting. Just imagine if Khabib Nurmagomedov was fighting somebody that's unranked in the UFC next weekend instead of Justin Gaethje. Yeah. And by the way, his last fight was against Dustin Porrier. And before that, Conor McGregor. These are the best of the best fighting. And that's why it doesn't really matter that Dustin Poirier is about to fight Conor McGregor, which is the biggest fight in sports right now, and he's coming off of a loss.
Right. And if honestly, if you don't agree with that, I challenge you to go out and find me in the UFC the last time a title fight had a champion favored at minus 2,000 or minus 3,000, because I'll wait, because you won't find it.
Right.
How many times in boxing has a title fight or a unification fight or a big boxing match, main event, seen odds that are minus 2,000 to plus 1,500? Right. It just doesn't happen in MMA. Facts are facts. You're entitled to your own opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. And that is just the truth of the matter in this. But that said, I said all that to say this. Teofimo Lopez seems to be a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
He seems to be a guy that he really believes in himself, and he really wants to go out and push himself to the limits. And I hope Bob Arum at Top Rank and his father, Teofimo Sr., allow him to do so. Because even if he does take an L, I'll always respect him as a fighter, and I'll always, more importantly than that, tune in to watch him fight if he does that.
Exactly. And it shows what kind of guy he is by in that 12th round, his corner was right. Lomachenko is probably down. He needs to win this last round for sure, just to even potentially, get the judges' score, which was not even close. But Teofimo goes, I'm not just going to concede and run around this last 12th round. I'm going to go and fight. I'm going to bite down on my mouthpiece and go at him so he can't just come at me for 3 minutes. And that shows the type of fighter that Teofimo is. He should be so proud of himself. Boxing should be so thankful that they have somebody like him representing the sport, and now they've got a unified, undisputed champion.
At 23.
At 23 years old, 15 fights. And that's another thing. He's only got 15 fights. We don't need to see somebody rack up a 40-0 record before they start to get these types of title fights. Let these kids go before they get too much brain damage and they get hit in the head. How many times, I'm sure both of these guys last night got hit in the head over 100 times and then in the body. And it's wrong. You know what they go through. If you're a fighter, you know exactly what you go through to train when you're in sparring day in and day out just to get ready for a fight where you go take even more punishment. And I think that padding these records with 30-0 before you get going and then having a real competition 1 out of every 4 or 5 fights is just a bad thing for the sport.
I agree. But much respect to both of these guys. Anatoly Lomachenko and his son, Vasyl, are going to go back and they're going to assess things. And I don't think this is the end of Lomachenko either. Maybe, there was such a size difference last night. Maybe Lomachenko, his real home is 130.
Yeah.
Maybe he goes back down to 130 and becomes the unified champion there. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with moving weight classes.
There's a lot of fun fights down there for him.
Exactly. And Teofimo's father said immediately at the press conference, my son's going up to 140.
Yeah.
So if he's going up to 140 and Lomachenko's going down to 130, now you got guys that are 2 weight classes apart. Okay, you lost to a guy that's 2 weight classes bigger than you.
Yeah.
Okay, no harm, no foul. So I hope Lomachenko keeps fighting. I hope that they dust off and take a little break and then get right back into it.
Yeah.
And I hope Teofimo's promotion and his coach, who is his father, allow him to be the fighter that he wants to be and go fight everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for such an incredible moment for a young fighter like that, or just a young human, it seemed like he wasn't able to just enjoy the moment and relish in it. It seemed like there was something else on his mind.
Yeah.
And if you watch the blood, sweat, and tears stuff, you go, God, you feel for this kid, because he started this journey with his father, and they had a dream to become champion, hopefully to become undefeated, undisputed, unified world champion. Last night they got that, but his dad's antics and just getting lost in the sauce and lost in the moment and not being able to turn off the boxing world from being a father, and boxing the role from being a father role. You could tell it was upsetting for Teofimo. I hope that he can enjoy these moments, because it's a very special time for Teofimo Lopez and his family.
Absolutely. And big congrats to Teofimo.
Yeah.
Amazing job. Who do you guys want to see him fight next? Is it Devin Haney? That name was thrown around a lot last night. Yeah. I personally love that fight. That's two quick, twitchy, powerful, young up-and-comers.
Yeah.
So let us know in the comments, guys. Is it Haney? Is it somebody else? And, we'd love to hear your feedback, as always. So, Nick, perhaps in what's the most exciting piece of Texas MMA news that's come out in a little while, Conor McGregor has now come out and said that he wants to make his return against Dustin Porrier. Mm-hmm. He's going to do it in the UFC, and it's going to happen at Cowboy Stadium, and his friend Jerry Jones is going to put it all together. So,
wow.
Seems a bit far-fetched, but maybe not. Maybe not. Who knows? You never know with Conor.
Yeah, no, every time Conor comes out and says something like that, a lot of people go, oh, it's too much too soon type of thing.
Yeah.
And then he somehow makes it happen. And if you pay attention, we obviously pay a lot of attention to the Texas MMA community and so the laws, especially around COVID and everything like that. And they've opened up MMA fights for the local promotions once again, and boxing for that matter. But a lot of those companies had to, take a temporary closing because they can't. They have to rely on a live gate. They have to rely on a live audience. They don't have people buying pay-per-views. So to pay their fighters, they have to bring in crowds, and that's generally the fighters will do that. They haven't been able to do that with COVID, so very few promotions are able to do that, like the UFC and Showtime, where they can sell pay-per-views and move forward with business. But that means if the people that are in the smaller promotions, the people that are running those, are able to put fights on as of now, then there must be some live audiences there. Yeah, well,
it seems, and we saw a couple of weeks ago on Instagram, El Tigre Promotions, who you fought your boxing match with. Shout out to them, great folks. They are now given the green light to go ahead and start to not necessarily book a live event, but ask for permission for this date, submit some COVID protocols, and the Texas Athletic Commission is reviewing it and granting licenses on a case-by-case basis for live events. So this just goes to show you that Conor McGregor knows a little about a lot of things. Yeah. He always is keeping his finger on the pulse of what's going on. He doesn't even live in the States. He lives in Ireland. But he knows. Conor never calls for something that he at least doesn't have a chance of getting.
Right.
So Madison Square Garden, New York, not happening. California, Staples Center or the new football stadium that they have out there, not happening. Texas, a little more open when it comes to COVID protocols and stuff like that. So it just goes to show you that Conor he had the mental awareness to call for a stadium in Texas because he just might be able to pull it off.
And he has a good relationship with Jerry Jones, the Dallas Cowboys. Exactly. He's never fought here. I think it would be really cool. And like you said, Texas is a lot easier for him to get a fight in than LA or the T-Mobile Arena. And when Conor McGregor fights, there needs to be a live crowd. That's just
absolutely.
And I'm not saying he should rest until that happens, but if we're able to go somewhere else or do something else, and I'll let you know that I keep up with the news, like I said, local promoters, and Fury Fighting Championship, which is based out of Houston, has a date booked. They got everything approved for December 12th of 2020. So they're gonna be having an audience there, and if they're allowed to do that in 2020, I don't see why a month later the UFC isn't allowed to put on a fight with Jerry Jones in Dallas.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on, and obviously for many reasons, we don't get political here at the Barnhill Brothers.
Right.
We talk about fights because that's what you guys come to hear about. But just briefly, I think it's going to depend on what the outcome of the election is, who the president might be at the time, and whether or not there's more lockdowns issued or whether things open back up.
Right.
And for you guys who listen that don't live in the States or don't follow U.S. politics, there's certain states are allowed to do their own thing. For example, like California is still very locked down as far as dine-in restaurants, things of that nature. New York's the same. Texas and Florida, we were just in Florida family vacation. They're much more opened up, even more so than Texas. So it's going to depend on what Governor Greg Abbott here in Texas has to say about this. I'm sure his input's going to be calculated. The way what the UFC feels about it, what ESPN feels about it, because they're not going to want to look negatively. They're not going to want to be seen in a negative light if they allow an 80,000 person stadium event to go on, even if it is for a bunch of money and with Conor McGregor. So I think a lot of things will have to take shape between now and the end of the year to allow for a mega stadium event in Texas with Conor McGregor on the top of the bill for the 23rd of January. But I'm not willing to say that it's out of the realm of possibilities, especially if the numbers of the COVID tests or positive tests keep going down in Texas like they've been trending down over the last few months. Right.
And if anybody can organize something and have it go smooth, it's the UFC and Dana White. They've shown that they're able to do it. They adapted and overcame with really great protocols and they figured out a system that works for them. I do think that they'll be able to figure out a way to get Conor McGregor in and Dustin Porrier in Cowboy Stadium, and I do think there will be live fans there. And I'm not talking about cutouts. I'm talking about real live fans. I mean, if you go look at Saturdays in America right now, football stadiums, I don't want to say they're packed, but they are full. It's like a non-rival football game sometimes. I mean, it looks like there's people. There's thousands of people. So if football can have it, and football in Texas can have it, football all over the country is able to put on shows with fans in the stands. I think the UFC and Dana White and with Conor McGregor on the bill, of course, we'll be able to make something special happen for us UFC and MMA fans.
Yeah, and football specifically is doing it on a team-by-team basis.
Right.
So the NFL, I believe, has basically come out and said, we're not going to put forth any regulation.
Right.
You guys, it's up to you and to use your own responsible judgment to do what you think is right. And again, a lot of the southern states, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, they're even Kansas City. We saw them do the season opener, and they had fans in the stadium. Other states have said we're not ready for that yet. I believe the California teams, the Chargers and the Rams, have said no fans for the entire season.
Right.
I think it was a bit early to say that because we don't know where things are going to be. The season doesn't end with the Super Bowl until February, so who knows? But all of that said, I do believe that there's a possibility that this happens. And I think that I'm willing to make the prediction that if the COVID numbers keep going the way they are going, and we do have maybe even a vaccine by the time that this fight comes around, that I'd predict that it probably does happen.
Yeah, and they might have some strenuous rules and protocol for the fans. I don't see there being an issue with that. As long as you're willing to do X, Y, and Z, you're welcome to come in and at your own risk. That type of stuff to me seems fair. It seems like the way it should probably operate. And like you were saying earlier, we have federal law here, which covers the entire country. We have state law, and then we have private law, like a business or a restaurant of any sort of business operation can operate how they want to. And so that's why you see slight changes in like I could go to a restaurant, a Mexican restaurant and then next door go to the Italian restaurant, and they could have totally different protocols.
But some could be a mask mandated. Even if the state's not mandating a mask, they may mandate it. Whereas the other one, the Italian restaurant may say, we're going to go by what the state says.
Right.
But I can tell you one thing, bro. I don't care if I have to wear 3 masks.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there if this fight happens and they have a live crowd.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to go to a Conor McGregor fight.
Same.
It's no secret on this channel that we are major Conor McGregor fans. He lets us down at times with some of the things he says and does, but at the end of the day, he's brought a lot to the sport, and
as a competitor, he's never let us down. But
never.
some of the out of the octagon antics, you take him or leave him. I think that he's just such a polarizing figure that a lot of good news comes from him and a lot of good things come from him, but also when there's good, there's also going to be some bad. And a lot of people want to see people like Conor McGregor fail, and occasionally you do get to see that. But he always seems to bounce back and in a polished, charismatic way, and that's why we keep coming back for more. And I'm super excited. Dustin Porrier is the right opponent for him. I hate that it's been a year since Conor McGregor fought, and it's been several years since they fought. I think this fight is totally different than their first fight. I think we'll make predictions later. I don't want to spoil my prediction right now, but this just is the right matchup.
Yeah.
And it's perfect because this is truly going to be a number 1 contenders matchup, and that for the sport, it's a good thing. Dustin Porrier is the guy.
Yep.
Conor McGregor, though, it's hard to deny that he's not the guy. He is the guy.
Yep.
So if those two get in there, I have a feeling we'll have, and whoever wins will have something special happen in around April or May.
Yeah, it would be hard to say that the winner of this fight doesn't fight the winner of Khabib Gaethje or isn't the rightful contender. I know you have Michael Chandler out there, but he has yet to step into the octagon and compete in his first fight. You have Tony Ferguson out there, who's always at the top of the game, and nobody's going to be mad if you throw his name in the heap.
Right.
That being said, one of these two guys absolutely could fit the bill for the next opponent for winner of Gaethje Khabib.
Yeah, I totally see that happening. I'm super excited. I really do think that this fight is all but done.
Yeah.
They've pretty much announced it. Dana said he's in. Conor and Dustin have both said they're in. We've got a date. We've pretty much got a location now.
Yeah.
And now basically we just need to get some promotion going behind it.
Yeah, and it's exactly what I said a couple of weeks ago. There's no reason why they can't do a charitable type of fight inside of the UFC's organization and still make it a great event and still matter for the rankings of the UFC. And Conor has said that I'm going to donate $500,000 to the Good Fight Foundation for Dustin. Dustin came on Ariel Helwani and said that would be absolute game changer for the charity. It would allow him to build a gym and hire a striking coach, a wrestling coach, and a jiu-jitsu coach, and put it in a bad neighborhood of town where he grew up in Louisiana, and make the admission. And this is what I love about Dustin. He said the admission to the gym, meaning the monthly membership dues, will have to be good grades and class attendance. So if you come in and you show Dustin you're making good grades and you're going to school, you fight for free, you learn for free, you grow for free. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think Conor donating the $500,000 could make that happen.
Yeah.
This is a feel-good fight. You don't get many feel-good fights with Conor. Usually he's the trash talker. He's the bad guy. He's the heel. But in a lot of ways, him and Dustin are the good guy in this situation, and it's a great fight on top of it.
Right, and I'm sure we'll get into some pre-fight, trash talk, if you will.
Of course,
but there's good intentions behind this on both guys' parts. You can't hear about Dustin Porrier and go, oh, that guy's a bad guy. He's such a good guy.
Right.
Conor McGregor does a lot of good things for a lot of people, both charitably, but also mentally. He's helped a lot of people that were bullied, kind of like the Israel Adesanya thing. People have a real life superhero to look up to in people like Dustin Porrier and Conor McGregor. So I think him cutting the check for $500,000 is fantastic. Dustin's going to do a lot of donating to that as well, and he's going to be spending a lot of time, which that's the most important for these kids. They get to be around a world champion. They get to be around somebody that they admire, and they can turn the TV on and see them every day and see them in major events on the biggest the biggest stage in all of
Yeah.
MMA. So,
And that does wonders for kids that don't really have a positive role model to
Right.
look up to. They look up to this guy and say, wow, he's really dedicated. He's done a lot of good things for not just me, but for my community. And, you know, I'm going to follow this guy's lead instead of some of the guys in the neighborhood who are negatively influencing us. So I think it's a wonderful
Right.
thing. The only thing that makes me think that this fight might not happen in Cowboy Stadium is Dana said he's not interested in half filling a stadium or quarter filling a stadium. He said, if we're going to do a stadium event with Conor McGregor, I want that stadium to look like an Anthony Joshua stadium when he's fighting at Wembley.
yeah.
So I think, and obviously Dana is willing to negotiate, and he's shown that he's willing to bend over backwards to make things happen.
Right.
So I do think that there's a compromise that they could make. I don't think that they're going to go at 100% capacity
No.
at 80,000 people. So there will have to be some compromising. Maybe they close off half of the stadium, and you know how they do for concerts sometime, and there's
Yeah.
only 40,000 seats, but it looks full, or maybe who knows?
or space them out. I mean, they've got
Yeah.
about 100,000 seats in there. So
Right.
if he fought at T-Mobile Arena, which is where he would probably fight if coronavirus didn't come about and we didn't have to lock down, that's a 20,000 persons thing. And of course, it looks great packed out, but I guarantee if they put it in Dallas Cowboy Stadium, we could fill it halfway to 50,000, which is twice as many people
Right.
as T-Mobile Arena. And yeah, you might not be able to see shoulder to shoulder everybody, but 50,000 people around, not a bad night of business.
There's also a rapid test that's coming out that the airlines are implementing in parts of Europe. So there might be a situation where we have to sign a waiver that you'll wear a mask.
Yeah.
That and submit yourself to the rapid test, which it would be a pain getting in there while 80,000 people or 50,000 or 30,000 or however many they do have to get rapid COVID tests.
Might have to get there a little early.
Yeah, they could make it happen, and I would be happy to camp out overnight to see that fight.
Absolutely.
So,
and my birthday is the 27th of January, only 4 days after. If it does get signed, that would be the only thing I'd want to do for my birthday is go see a Conor McGregor fight.
no doubt.
Yeah, super cool stuff. Hopefully we can make it happen. And
Yeah.
I'm just jazzed up because Dustin Porrier is the right competitor to step in the octagon with Conor McGregor next.
It fills all the blanks. It checks all the boxes, answers the questions, and it solves the problem of the logjam at 155.
Yeah.
Quick question before we wrap this. They said it might be done at welterweight.
That's actually it. Yeah. John Kavanagh said he's super excited to see this fight happen at welterweight. So we keep talking about implications in the 155 division. I do largely think that this fight will have implications and decide some things at 155, even if they do it at 170.
Yeah.
This
This is just convenience for Conor at this point. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to. Me and Dustin weigh about the same.
Yeah.
Why do we need to cut down to the same weight? There's not a belt on the line. Let's just do it.
Right, and I think they're smart to do that, and I don't hold it against the UFC or Dana, Dustin, Conor, anybody if they want to just cut the weight cut out of this, and just fight and understand that we could both cut an extra 15 pounds, but why do it?
But we're not going to.
Yeah, exactly. It's for charity.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, guys. Yeah, we're cutting a $500,000 check. Give me a break on the weight cut.
Yeah.
Guys, what do you think about this fight? Do you think it's too soon to talk about doing a big stadium event? Do you think there's a way to do it that's smart and safe and makes everybody happy? Let us know in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching this latest Barnhill Brothers episode. Please like, comment, subscribe, and check us out where you listen to podcasts.
Peace.
Have a great day.
And it's good to be back home.
Yes, it is, guys. Back in H-Town.